Have you ever been there? You're praying, you're looking for some kind of direction, and a thought just pops into your head. And right away, you're hit with that big nagging question. It's a struggle pretty much everyone of faith runs into, trying to figure out how to hear God's voice clearly, especially with all the noise of our own minds. So let's just dive right into this and see if we can find some clarity together.
It always starts with this really hopeful, almost exciting question, right? You feel this little nudge, a prompting, maybe an idea that just feels bigger. And you think, okay, maybe this is it. Maybe this is the guidance I've been waiting for.
And then, almost immediately, the doubt starts to creep in. Is this really a divine message? Or is it just my own hopes and dreams? Or my fears? Or, maybe just the pizza I had last night talking? That uncertainty, man, it can be absolutely paralyzing.
This quote from our source material just nails that feeling perfectly, doesn't it? All of a sudden, that one potential whisper from God gets completely buried under this avalanche of what-ifs, anxieties, and second-guessing. It just turns into one big confusing mess inside your head.
But what if there were ways to actually tell the difference? Well, the good news is there really are. There are these distinct characteristics, these sort of telltale signs that can help us start to untangle God's guidance from our own internal chatter. Just look at the contrast here. It's pretty stark. Our own thoughts, they tend to jump all over the place. They're often anxious, rooted in fear, and they usually demand immediate answers, like right now. But God's voice, it's known for its consistency and its calm. It brings this sense of peace, even if the path it's pointing to feels difficult or challenging. So this idea actually builds into a really simple framework we can use. Let's look at 3 practical, key filters you can run any prompting through to get some real clarity. Think of these 3 steps as your go-to toolkit for discernment. It's simple. First, we're going to check the emotional tone. Second, we'll measure it against Scripture. And third, we're going to look for confirmation. All right, let's break each one down. Okay, so the first test is all about the feeling it creates inside you. A thought that sends you spiraling into fear or confusion or straight-up panic, that is very likely not from God. His guidance, even when it's challenging us to step out in faith, is almost always accompanied by this deep underlying peace.
This one's your guardrail. God's character is unchanging, which means his voice is never ever going to contradict what he's already revealed in the Bible. So if a prompting is encouraging something that's, greedy or prideful or just totally out of line with the core teachings of love and faith, you can be pretty confident it's not from him.
And finally, God is rarely in a hurry. Unlike our own anxious, fleeting thoughts, his guidance is often gentle and persistent. He'll confirm his direction, sometimes over days or even weeks. It might come through a scripture that just seems to jump off the page at you, or a quiet, repeated sense you get in prayer, or even through the wise counsel of friends you trust. Okay, so we've got the filters, but here's the thing. None of them work if our minds are just too loud to even hear that initial whisper. And this brings us to a really crucial foundational practice, actually creating the space to listen in the first place. It's a simple question, right? But the answer is the key to literally everything we've just talked about. How do we even begin to quiet all that inner noise so we can start to discern anything at all?
The starting point is captured perfectly right here in this verse from Psalms. Stillness. And it's not a passive thing. It's an active choice. It's choosing to quiet our own agendas, our fears, and our frantic need to problem solve so that we can create an environment where his quieter, calmer voice can actually be heard. And look, this isn't about some complicated spiritual formula. It's really just about creating these little pockets of quiet in a super noisy world. It means intentionally slowing down your day, even if it's just for 5 minutes. It means shifting your prayer from being a monologue where you do all the talking to a real dialogue, where you pause and actually listen for a response. It means reading scripture not just for information, but to be shaped by it. And, maybe most importantly, it means being patient. Listening is a skill, and it develops over time. It's not an instant download.
So what happens when we start to put these things into practice? Well, something pretty incredible begins to happen. We start to move away from that feeling of being lost in a crowd of our own thoughts and toward a place of genuine peace and clarity. And here's the promise that's underneath this whole journey. God is not trying to hide his will from you. He actually wants to give you wisdom. The invitation is always open. If you lack clarity, all you have to do is ask. He promises to give it generously. This verse is such a great reminder that recognizing God's voice is just a natural part of being in a relationship with him.
It's kind of like learning the voice of a loved one, you know? The more time you spend with them, the more easily you recognize their voice, even in a super crowded room. It's a skill that just grows with practice and intimacy.
So if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's that hearing from God usually isn't some booming voice from the clouds or a huge, dramatic, emotional event. More often than not, it's a steady, peaceful, and persistent guidance that always lines up with His truth and leads you forward one step at a time.
And so we end right back where we started. But now we have a set of tools. The next time you're facing this question, just take a moment, be still. Check the tone, check the word, and check for confirmation. It's a lifelong practice, for sure, but it's the one that leads us away from the anxiety of confusion and straight into the profound peace of His guidance.